Hello everyone, welcome to Clean Copper Talks. Deepor Beel, an important wetland site to India, an important ecological site to India. We will know today everything about Deepor Beel in this video, so stay till last. So Deepor Beel is a permanent freshwater lake in southwest Guwahati, Assam. गुवाहाटी असम स्टेट का कैपिटल है. Now Guwahati is also one of the major city, very important city in complete northeast Indian states. So we can understand कि Guwahati कितना important है for all the northeastern state as well as India in a complete sense. So Guwahati के southwest में freshwater lake है which is Deepor Beel. So this serves as a source of fresh drinking water to Guwahati city. It is a natural wetland and the only Ramsar site, the Deepor Beel wetland, in Assam since 2002. And Deepor Beel जो word है, it has come from Assamese language, where Deep means elephant and Beel means lake. So Deepor Beel. Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change had designated Deepor Beel Wildlife Sanctuary as ecologically sensitive area in 2021. Now, ecologically sensitive area क्या है? Deepor Beel Wildlife Sanctuary. And Ramsar site क्या है? Deepor Beel Wetland. So there is a difference between Deepor Beel Wetland and Deepor Beel Wildlife Sanctuary. Exact differences क्या है? हम आगे देखेंगे. सो लोकेशन वाइज अगर देखें तो दीपोर बिल कहाँ लोकेटेड है? कमरूप डिस्ट्रिक्ट आसाम में. दीपोर बिल वेटलैंड जो कि वास्ट एरिया है उसका कवर्स 40 किलोमीटर स्क्वायर, जबकि दीपोर बिल वाइल्ड लाइफ सेंचुरी कवर्स ओनली 4.14 किलोमीटर स्क्वायर. कहाँ पे है? साउथ ऑफ ब्रह्मपुत्र रिवर. ब्रह्मपुत्र रिवर अगेन वन ऑफ द इम्पोर्टेंट, वन ऑफ द बल्किएस्ट रिवर इन इंडिया. उसके साउथ में दीपोर बिल है एंड सराउंडेड बाय लो हिल्स एंड फेड बाय लोकल स्ट्रीम. तो दीपोर बिल के आसपास छोटे छोटे पहाड़ हैं और छोटे नदी नाले जो कि इस पे वाटर फीड करते रहते हैं. ओके, कमिंग बिफोर दिस हियर. सो जो रामसर साइट है, रामसर डेजिग्नेशन इज गिवन एट इंटरनेशनल लेवल व्हेन एनी साइट designated as Ramsar site उसको international recognition मिलता है. But Ramsar site is very ecologically important site because it is a habitat of wide number of species and maybe many of them are extinct or at the verge of getting extinct, endangered species. So जो wetland है, wetland is more 40 kilometer square area है. Here I can show you the figure. So wetland is almost 40 kilometer square area, or wetland is Ramsar site, but the which is ecologically sensitive area, the Deepor Beel Wildlife Sanctuary. What happens at ecologically sensitive area? Ecologically sensitive area से 10 kilometer square distance तक कोई भी commercial activity such as setting up of restaurants, hotels या any coal power production or any industrial activity जिससे कि natural habitat of wild animals, flora, fauna disturb होता हो, all those activities are not permitted in within 10 kilometers of the ecologically sensitive area. So this is done. Importance क्या है? Ecological importance for the Deepor Beel. It is a natural flood buffer. What does that mean? कि अगर कभी फ्लड आता है so it can store the water, it can take up those water and help the locality which is situated nearby such as Guwahati. वहाँ पे फ्लड नहीं आएगा because Deepor Beel will take up all the water. Another thing is it does recharges groundwater because of presence of the Deepor Beel nearby area. It recharges the groundwater it purifies water naturally and it acts as a carbon sink because यहाँ पे इतने सारे forests have plants and trees and they absorb all the carbon and therefore they act as a carbon sink. Now the Deepor Beel wetland. See, wetland and wildlife sanctuary both are different. Deepor, let me tell you three things. Deepor Beel wetland, Deepor Beel wildlife sanctuary, and Deepor Beel bird sanctuary. Deepor Beel wetland is a complete Deepor Beel water river area, not river, it is a lake area, which is shown in the map. And Deepor Beel Wildlife Sanctuary is the nearby forest area nearby the Deepor Beel. So wildlife sanctuary is very small compared to the wetland. Wetland is approximately 40 kilometers square. Wildlife sanctuary is 4.14 kilometers square. And this same wildlife sanctuary earlier it was called as bird sanctuary, but later government को ये realize हुआ कि it is not just a bird sanctuary. It is not just a habitat of large number of different species of bird. It is also habitat of large number of different species of wild animals also, like elephants. So it was designated as the Poor Beel Wildlife Sanctuary. Clear है? Three things: the Deepor Beel wetland, the Deepor Beel wildlife sanctuary, and the Deepor Beel bird sanctuary. The Deepor Beel bird sanctuary was earlier, which was renamed as the Deepor Beel wildlife sanctuary, and the Deepor Beel wetland is the water area, the lake. Okay, so Ramsar designation was given to the Deepor Beel wetland. It gives them international importance, and since when this has been designated as Ramsar site? Since 2002. Why? Because it is known for its biodiversity and ecological services. It is habitat. It is a natural habitat to wide number of different animal species, flora, fauna, and also it hosts a lot of animals. It is very ecologically important, and not just animals. The plant, the trees which are present, they act as a carbon sink. They provide the good weather. They helps in regulating the atmosphere. Uh, Air conditions. Therefore, it is very important ecologically also. Now, biodiversity at Deepor Beach, it has more than 200 bird species, different bird species, large number of aquatic plants, fishes, amphibians, and it is a natural habitat to wild animals such as elephants. So that is why it is so. The biodiversity at Deepor Beach is so huge impact it has, and it is so, and that is why it is important. Now, in the poor bill, you can find migratory birds. Migratory birds are those birds which migrate from the cold or the west area, which gets very cold in the during winter time. So they migrate and they come towards us, Asian countries, South Asian countries. So there are large number of birds which you can find, just such as Siberian crane, lesser and greater adjunct, spot-billed Pelician, painted storks. These are all very important birds, and they migrate to the Deepor Beel area during winters. Similarly, uh, since this is about migratory birds, you can find migration of uh, birds in the region of Mumbai. Okay, during winter season, a lot of birds are sighted during winter season in the Mumbai. Flamingos. Flamingos are those species. Now, how does the local community surrounding the Deepor Beel survive? What is the sources of their livelihood? So the main sources of their livelihood is fishing and farming. They do the fishing, they catch fishes from Deepor Beel, and they do farming in the nearby area. Deepor Beel is very culturally important to them also, to the nearby area, people residing, and Deepor has a lot of ecotourism potential because it is so green. It has so many different birds and different wild animals, species of wild animals. It is a huge attraction to all the people around the globe, and it has a huge ecotourism potential if harvested uh, in a planned way. So, what are the environment threats to Deepor? Because now the population is growing. With population, there's urban sprawl. Urban sprawl means development of buildings in every area. There, the forests are being cut, the forest is being cleared, and buildings are created. So one of the environmental threat is, to the core bill is the clearance of forest and creating urban landscapes. Water pollution and solid waste dumping. Recently, there was a controversy that Guwahati Municipal Corporation was dumping solid waste into the nearby the Deepor Beel area, and some through some pipelines or some small nalas, wastewater is also being dumped into the Deepor Beel area. This is not, see, about wastewater. Uh, there is no written justified news about it that it is being done, but this is a speculation. And for solid waste dumping side, the Guwahati Municipal Corporation was already doing it, and it is being in the news, and it was a controversy. So these are the environmental threats, which is and then railway line. There is a railway line passing through the Port Bill. So in any railway line throughout the India, you just go and see the area besides the railway line. It will be filled with a lot of plastic, reusable plastic dumped. So they create a disturbing environment for those who have their natural environment, natural habitat in the Port Bill forest. And a lot of encroachment can also be seen near the Deepor Bill area, which is also not good. So there was a garbage dumping controversy, as I just told, that the Guwahati Municipal Corporation was dumping municipal solid waste in the area near Deepor Beel. The problem with dumping of solid waste is many. The first problem is it acts as a breeding ground for mosquitoes. It acts as a food source for rats and birds, and then these create further nuisances. There is release of toxic gases from the dumping of solid waste, and because if it is not a scientific dumping, there will be percolation of leachate from the solid waste into the groundwater, which ultimately um, pollutes or contaminates the water source groundwater also. So because of dumping of solid waste, there was habitat destruction, and so a lot of protest and environmental concerns were raised because of dumping of solid waste in the area surrounding the Boreville. As such, NGT, National Green Tribunal, and Guwahati High Court came into action. They ordered the Guwahati Municipal Corporation to stop dumping of solid waste near the Deepor Beel area, and then wetland protection efforts were directed. Wetland conservation measures were taken so that the wetland is preserved. There comes the government and NGOs, which started the Poor Wheel Development Committee, and restoration and awareness programs were run throughout the Assam, so that the poor wheel should be saved, the poor wheel should be conserved. Now, community participation. How was community participation? Youth cleanup drives were created throughout the Guwahati or in Assam. Now, youth cleanup drives are usually taken place through the help of colleges and universities. So, a lot of universities and colleges, they organize youth cleanup drives, which helped in cleaning a lot of the pollution. Ecotourism was awareness was spread in the people also, not just among the students, but among the layman people, common people residing nearby, or in the area surrounding the Deepor Bill. Then alternative livelihood training was also provided to the people living in this area surrounding to the Deepor Bill, so that they are not just dependent on the Deepor Bill, but they are doing something else from the Deepor Bill, and thus they should not disturb the Deepor Bill. Then conservation measures which were needed was enforcing a stricter law, so that nobody should so that no activity should disturb the Porville natural habitat of animals, wildlife animals, aquatic animals, as well as birds. Better waste management practices were suggested, so that municipal corporation incorporates them, and it does not dump the waste into uh, the poor bill. Zoning was done so that the waste should be collected and dumped accordingly, and education and participation of people at large was introduced. Role of citizens was The spreading of once awareness is spread, a lot of work is done. Responsible tourism measures culture was developed, and support to wetland efforts were also started. In conclusion remark, Deepor Beel is ecologically and culturally vital, very important, not just for Northeast, not just for India, but for the whole country. It is a natural habitat to a lot of different migratory birds, species, animals, wild animals, aquatic animals, as well as a lot of different flora and fauna. Therefore, Deepor Beel is very important. Deepor Beel wetland as well as Deepor Beel wildlife sanctuary. Conservation is urgent. Conservation of the Beel is very important. The wetland and future preserve. We need to preserve it for the future generation. Otherwise, if conservation measures are not taken, future generation will not be able to see the Deepor Beel. One last thing which I missed to talk about was the Deepor Beel wetland. The function of wetland itself is a very important. Wetland helps in I think I have discussed it in the previous slide. It's that it can stop the flood. If Guwahati or nearby area is receiving a flood, the wetland can absorb the water and help in saving from flood. It can act as water recharge. It can purify the water, and the wetland itself is very important and ecologically important as has. Therefore, Deepor Beel wetland, Deepor Beel wetland, Deepor Beel wildlife sanctuary, and Deepor Beel bird sanctuary all are important. I hope you like this video. If yes, do subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, bye bye. Take care.